evening and welcome to the news at 10. Jordan welcomed the United Nations General Assembly's vote to approve a draft resolution rejecting President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moving the U.S. embassy there. The non-binding vote at the UN General Assembly's emergency meeting, called for by Yemen as head of the Arab group and Turkey on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, passed with 128 votes in favor, 9 against, while 35 countries abstained. State Minister for Media Affairs and Government spokesman Mohammed Al-Momeni said the new resolution reflects the will of international legitimacy by confirming the illegality of any action aimed at changing the status quo in the Holy City. He stressed that international law considers East Jerusalem an occupied territory and achievements of comprehensive peace requires that East Jerusalem be the capital of an independent Palestinian state along the lines of June 4, 1964. Al-Momeni called for concerted efforts by the international community to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict on the basis of a two-state solution in accordance with the relevant resolutions of international legitimacy and the Arab Peace Initiative as the only way to achieve security and stability in the region. The session at the 193-member body was held after the U.S. vetoed the same measure in the Security Council on Sunday. Lower House Speaker Out of Tarawneh headed a meeting of the House's Finance Committee in the presence of Prime Minister Hani Al-Mulki. Al-Tarawneh expressed his appreciation to the chairman and members of the Finance Committee for their great efforts as they discussed with all government bodies their budgets. Tarawneh added that the final report on the state budget is expected to be completed by next Sunday. He also agreed on the diagnosis to current economic challenges and the importance of the shared responsibility among state institutions. Tarawneh stressed the importance of expanding government projects that are implemented according to the principle of financial leasing. For his part, Al-Mulki pointed to the financial and economic reforms implemented by the government that led to achieve the required results, including the stability of the debt ratio to the GDP. On bread subsidies, the Prime Minister said that support will be directed to the citizens as a large proportion of the support provided does not go to its beneficiaries. He added that the government has allocated 171 million dinars in the budget to support the poor through mechanisms adopted by the lower house. Al-Mulki also announced that the government will allocate 25 million dinars, of which 10 million dinars to the civil and military institutions to maintain the stability of prices, 10 million dinars for the national aid to new families benefiting from the National Aid Fund, and 5 million dinars for schools in rural areas. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriate Affairs Ayman Safari discussed with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov the latest Middle East developments in light of the U.S. administration's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. During a phone call, the two ministers highlighted ongoing efforts to find a peaceful solution to the Syrian crisis, along with the situation in the deconfliction zone in the northern Syria region and the humanitarian relief aid. Discussions also touched on prospects of bilateral ties and ways to foster cooperation in the various domains. UN Special Envoy on Syria, Stefan de Mistura, said he planned to organize a next round of Syrian peace talks in Geneva in the second half of January. De Mistura was speaking in Moscow at a news conference after holding talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He told Lavrov that the last round of peace talks had gone badly, adding that he would take part in the next talks to be held in the Kazakh capital Astana on the 22nd of this month. Lavrov said that all participants of Syrian peace talks in Geneva will be invited to a planned Syrian Congress in Russia.
It's true. The last Geneva meeting was not a good meeting. The atmosphere was not the right one.
A military source at the Jordan Armed Forces said that the Northern Military Command foiled in cooperation with the Anti-Narcotics Department and the Security Department, an attempt to smuggle large quantities of drugs. As two suspects attempted to cross the border from Syria into Jordan, the army applied the rules of engagement, killing one infiltrator and forcing the other to flee back into Syria. After searching the area, the army found a large quantity of drugs and referred them to the relevant authorities. In sports, Siv Spillman, a black alpine skier, is more determined than ever to become South Africa's first at the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang next year, having been prevented from competing in Sochi by his own Games Committee. The 22-year-old has now qualified again for Pyeongchang and is hopeful he can act as an example to help grow the sport further in South Africa. Spillman from Barkley East, a small and rural town at the southern tip of South Africa, is one of the few areas of the country that gets significant snow. And finally, the weather forecast: a cold night in Amman with easterly light winds and a low of 13 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, moderate weather continues in the capital with southeasterly moderate winds and a high of 22 degrees. The Gulf of Aqaba can expect a slightly cold night with a low of 15 degrees and a warm Friday with a high of 27 degrees with southwesterly light winds and slightly choppy seas. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Al-Sbah. Thank you for watching and have a lovely weekend.